Jesuit general's secret government over the American government is orchestrated through the Archbishop of New York. The St. Patrick's Cathedral, from that palace from where the Archbishop rules, is across the street from Rockefeller Center.
Palace, interesting concept.
Yes.
What was it about John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy that didn't mesh with the Jesuits and this whole thing?
Well, Kennedy would be considered a liberal Roman Catholic. And pursuant to the Jesuit oath, they put to death Protestants and liberal Catholics. That's why during World War II, the Jesuits used their SS to kill some 2,500 Catholic priests because they were against the Nazis. So they eliminated them in Dachau and a few of the other camps.
Mm-hmm.
They killed their own liberals. So they did the same thing to John Kennedy when he sought to end the Vietnam War. He sought to end the CIA. He also was against the Cardinals' voucher system of using tax money to support Catholic schools. Kennedy wasn't going to do that.
Uh-huh.
He was against the Federal Reserve System, which is run by the Jesuit order through the Knights of Malta, because the stockade class holders are banks like Citibank, Morgan Guarantee Loan and Trust. They're all run by the Knights of Malta. One of them was Francis X. Stankard, who was head of Chase Manhattan Bank, who sent John J. McCloy to be on the Warren Commission. And McCloy was the Secretary of War under FDR, who refused to bomb the railroad tracks to Auschwitz.
One of the labor camps, work camps, or death camps was ever interdicted with a single bombing raid that we know of.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And that's why I show in my book that all the intelligence agencies, the SS, the OSS, the NKVD, the British SIS, they all worked together. They all dovetailed in the Vatican.
Who was supposed to win World War II? Was Hitler supposed to win, or was
no.
communism supposed to win?
Russia was to win, not Hitler. The purpose of Hitler, he was to destroy the Protestant Reformation in Germany, which he succeeded in doing. Protestantism ended for the most part.
Yeah, if his scientists had come up with the atomic bomb first, the war might have ended much differently.
True.
They did make some calculation errors, I understand, and it just didn't get it done, but they were certainly trying.
No, the Jesuits ran the intelligence of the Third Reich.
Why didn't he? All right. Why didn't Adolf Hitler cross the Channel and neutralize England when he had the opportunity?
Wonderful question, because he was not allowed to. And any one of his generals that wanted to stop, for example, the landing on Normandy, particularly Rommel, was brought back to Germany and executed, because Rommel knew they were coming at Normandy. Why did Hitler give the order for the Germans to stop at Dunkirk and not annihilate 350,000 English?
Mm-hmm.
Because that war had to continue, and there were more Jews to kill in the East. They hadn't purged Europe of its Jews yet.
Mm-hmm. The Knights of Malta and other so-called fraternal organizations, are most all of them tied into the papacy and the Catholic Church and the Jesuits at some point?
Oh, yes. At the leadership, at the pinnacle of power, they're all tied into the Jesuit order and subordinate to the Jesuit general. Because the Jesuit general controls the Pope. He's controlled the papacy since 1814, since the order was revived by Pius VII. And from then on, he has controlled all of it, including, in fact, Freemasonry as well.
Freemasonry, throw that in too. Does it matter who is the Pope? Does it matter that we're going to have a new Pope next time?
No, not at all. All that matters is that Pope does what the Jesuit general tells him to do. And if he doesn't do that, then he'll be punished like Pius IX when he was driven from Rome to Gaeta, or he'll be murdered like Pope John Paul I was.
There have been more than a few popes removed, I understand.
Many of them. Pope Clement XIII, when he was about to suppress the Jesuits in 1770, he was poisoned the night before he was going to sign the suppression. And then when Clement XIV came to power, he was a Franciscan, Ganglanelli. He then entered into a 4-year investigation of the order, and after 4 years of investigating, suppressed the order at 1:30 in the morning while they were still in bed. But he said, this suppression will be my death, and sure enough, 14 months later, he was poisoned with a keta.
Why was the Pope immediately before this one removed so quickly?
Well,
if that in fact is what happened.
Well, according to Albert Manhattan, in his book Death in the Vatican, he says that this Pope, the Pope John Paul I, was poisoned. And David Yallah's book, In God's Name, said absolutely he was murdered, and he was murdered by a couple of Freemasons. One of them was Jean Cardinal Vallet of France. he was removed because, as I understand it, he sought to remove Pedro Arrupe from the position of being Jesuit general, and that he also sought to extend diplomatic relations to Zionist Israel prematurely.
Wow. All right. World War II and Zionists. There have been several books written about the idea that, and again, there's a confusion here between Jews and Zionists, but that there was a big sacrifice in World War II. And it would seem from what you're saying that the case on the basis of your research could be made that the Zionists were involved.
Sure. According to one book I was just recently reading at the library, the author said there, and he was a Jewish individual, said that the roundups of the Jews in Berlin was accomplished by the Jewish police working for the SS.
Mm-hmm. That's not the only story like that I've heard, by the way. There have been many others.
Well, we have Rudolf Kastner in Hungary, who sent 476,000 Jews to Auschwitz, only saved 1,600 of them, for which later this crime was brought up when he went to Israel, and the good doctor just managed to get shot by a former agent of the Mossad before he could be tried. So, yes, the high-level Zionists are Freemasons.
When did the Zionists hijack Israel and the Jewish dream?
They've controlled it from the beginning. David Ben-Gurion was working for the papacy. James Wiseman was absolutely the agent of the Pope. They never, ever renounced Pius XII, who, it was common knowledge, was behind the SS. He had conquered that with Hitler. He knew all about the concentration camps in Poland, yet not one Zionist ever denounced or renounced Pius XII for his crimes. And if they would have been truly patriotic Jewish people wanting to have in their own country, don't you think they would have?
There are, of course, many stories about Jews who were very active in the communist Bolshevik revolution and subsequent decades in the old Soviet Union. Were these Jews or were they Zionists?
They were racially Jews and Zionists by political belief. And the Jesuits used their Masonic Jewish Zionists as the front men for their Bolshevik revolution. Lenin was partly Jewish. Stalin, his name, Duglavishi, means son of a Jew. So they used many up-front Jews to carry out their Inquisition in Russia, but the Jesuits controlled the Bolshevik Revolution through certain Jesuits like Bishop Ropp.
What does your research show in terms of who financed the Bolsheviks and the whole revolution there?
Well, we know that Jacob Schiff was a Masonic Jewish Zionist. He financed it from New York. But we also know it was financed by the Federal Reserve Bank and 120 Broad Street, which was that whole cartel of super capitalists there, financing the Bolshevik Revolution for at least $1 million or more.
Oh, at least I think it was more than that. But Jacob Schiff's name came up recently. Al Gore's daughter married Jacob Schiff's grandson, I believe.
I see. Well, Al Gore is definitely tied to the Masonic Jewish Zionists, not only through the Schiffs, then, if that's who he married, but also through Armand Hammer. Armand Hammer had free ingress and outgo all throughout the communist empire from the days of Lenin to the days of Gorbachev. Armand Hammer was the exclusive agent for Ford Motor Company to bring in Fords and tractors. He handled all the business there. But what we're not told is that when he built his Hammer House and that international trade mart there in Moscow, guess who financed it? The Bank of America, the Jesuits' Bank of America.
A.P. Giannini, former head of the Bank of America.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about a tangled web indeed. It's amazing, but when you get to the perspective that Eric John Phelps has, it begins to look very cohesive and coherent. Okay, go ahead.
I'd add one more thing if I can, Jeff.
Yeah, sure.
The Bolshevik Revolution was made deliberately to look Jewish so that they could raise up Adolf Hitler and the fascists in Western Europe to have this huge crusade into Russia called Operation Barbarossa for the purpose of killing all the Jews in Western Russia with the Einsack group and also murdering many Orthodox people who wouldn't convert to Catholicism.
Go ahead.
The Jesuits were in the wake of the Einsack group and were in charge of that, all four groups.
Will we ever find out the even 1/10 of the true involvement of the Church of Rome in World